Hello lovelies, welcome back to Alake Oge YouTube channel. If the first time of watching my video, you're welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. I love you. So today's tutorial is on how to draft a basic gown bodice, a basic gown pattern. So I'll just be showing us how to draft that using the bust dart technique. So we're using the bust dart technique to make this. So I need my these are tools that I will use: my curve ruler, scissors, my marker and tape measure, my pattern paper. And for the measurements, you need your shoulder measurement, your bust circumference, waist circumference, hip circumference, the shoulder to the waist for the front, the shoulder to the for the back, the shoulder to the hip, and also the bust span, and also the bust to the nipple too. I mean shoulder to the nipple, that's the bust point measurement. So to start off, I'm going to divide my biggest circumference into two, and the biggest circumference I have is 36. So 36 divided by 2 equals to 18. My biggest circumference is my hip, so I divide that by 2 equals to 18. So from on horizontally on my pattern paper, I will measure the 18 inches. Please work with your measurements. So I'm just going to input that on the pattern paper and connect the dotted lines. I always do it in dotted line because it might not be straight if you roll it once. So from that 18 inches, I'm not going to divide that into 2 again, so as to have space to work for the front and the back. So I'm just going to divide that into 2 and connect the dotted lines like so. So I'm going to label that side the center front and this side the center back. That side is for where I will input the front measurements, and the CB is where we input the back measurements, if that makes any sense. So the next measurement I will input is the shoulder measurement. I'm going to divide my shoulder measurement into 2. So my shoulder measurement is 14. So 14 divided by 2 equals to 7. So I'll mark the 7 inches there. Please work with your measurements. And from where I mark the 7 inches there, I'm going to input the front shoulder slope. Front shoulder slope is 1.5 inches. And from where I mark that, I will input my armhole measurement. Armhole measurement is calculated by the bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. Mine is 7.1. So I'm just going to input that. Please work with your measurements. So from where I marked the shoulder slope, I'm going to input the 7.1 inches. So right there, I'm going to square down that line like so. So I'm also going to take it straight to the back. So that will serve as the chest line for both the front and also for the back. So the next measurement I'm going to input is my neckline. So I'm just going to do a neckline of 3 by 3 inches for the front. So if you're working with a plus size measurement, let's say from 40, bust 40 above, do 3.5 by 3.5. So I'll use my curve ruler to curve the line like so. And from the neckline, I'm just going to connect it to the shoulder slope like so. So the next thing I'll do is to input the shoulder measurement back on the chest line, half of it like so, and connect it to where I'm doing right now. So the next thing I'll do right now is to mark the neckline for the back, which I'll be using 3 by 1 inches, 3 for the width and 1 inch for the depth. If it's a plus size, please use 3.5 by 1 inch like so. Just use your curve ruler to connect it like that. And where I marked the 7, I'm going to mark the shoulder measurement, which is 7 inches, half of the shoulder measurement, which is 7 inches. And from where I mark the 7 inches, I'll come down by 1 inch, 1 inch for the back shoulder slope. We use 1.5 for the front. So now the next thing I'll do is to input the shoulder measurement again, which is 7, and connect it to where I marked the shoulder slope like so. So from there, I will connect back to the neckline like that. So the next thing I'll do is to input the bust circumference. So my bust circumference is 34, so I'm going to divide that by 4 because we are drafting half of the front and half of the back. So 34 divided by 4 equals to 8.5, and I'm just going to input that on the chest line. So now, so where I mark the armhole measurement, I will look for the midpoint. So I'm just dividing that into 2. So from where I marked in the midpoint there, I'm going to come in by 0.75 to create the armhole curve for the front. So, and I'm just going to use my curve ruler to connect like so. So I'm just going to connect it like that. And that's my front armhole curve there. So for the back too, I'm just going to do the same. Input the quarter of my bust circumference, and that line too, I'm going to look for the midpoint too. So the midpoint is where I'm going to come in by 0.5. From there, I'm marking the midpoint, then I'll come in by 0.5. You know, we use 0.75 for the front, for the back 0.5. Then I'm going to connect it in like that to create the armhole curve. So just do that. All these measurements I mentioned, those ones are constant. So like so. So the next measurement I'll input is my shoulder to the waist for the front. You know, I mentioned that the shoulder to waist for the front and the back is not the same. So my shoulder to waist for the front is 16 inches. And I'm just going to mention that and square the line like so. I'll not take it to the back because the back waistline is different. So the next measurement I will input is the shoulder to the nipple, which will serve as the bust point. You can also call it the nipple point or the bust line. So I'm just going to measure it. Mine is 11, so I'm just going to square down that line. You're not going to take it back because there's no bust point at the back. So I'm just labeling it BP, bust point. So the next measurement I input is the shoulder to the waist for the back, which is 14 inches for me. If you don't know why the front waistline is different from the back waistline, I will drop the link in the comment section on how to take accurate body measurements. I explained in details that, so I just label that place waistline, that's WL. So the next thing I want to do now is to input my bust span measurements. My bust span is 7 inches. That's the nipple to the nipple. So mine is 7. So 7 divided by 2 equals to 3.5. So I'm going to mark that 3.5 on the waistline and also on the bust line. Then I'll connect those dots together. So I'm going to leave that for now, then concentrate on other things. So now, the next I want to measure is the difference from my shoulder to the waist and from my shoulder to the hip. My shoulder to the waist measurement is 16, while my shoulder to the hip measurement is 24. So I'm just going to deduct that. So 24 minus 16 is equals to 8. So I'm just going to mark that 8 inches there. So that place will serve as the hip line for the front. So I'm just going to label that HL. So the difference from the front waistline and the back waistline, I'm going to input it at the back, which is 8 inches. So that line will serve as the hip line for the back, like so. So I'll just label that HL2, that's the hip line. So the next thing I'll do is to increase the dart to input the bust span. That's 3.5 on the hip line also, and connect the lines together. So at the back too, I'll input 3.5 on the hip line. I will do that on the waistline and also on the chest line. 3.5 is half of my bust span, which is 7, so I'm connecting those lines together. This is what I'll use to create my darts. So at the front too, I'll connect the line to the hip line like so. So to create the dart for the front, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for the bust point. Just come down by 1 inch from the bust point. And on the hip line, I'm going to take my dart, which is 1 inch, half inch on one side and half inch on the other side. And I'll connect to where I come down from 1 inch. Then from the hip line, I'm going to come up by 1 inch too and connect. So I'm just going to connect the darts together like so. So for the back, I'm just going to input the dart 1 inch half inch on both sides for the back, then connect it straight to the chest line and also straight to the hip line. I'm just going to connect it to the hip line. So for the front back, you're not going to be coming up by 1 inch or come down by 1 inch. You're just going to connect straight from the chest line to the hip line like so. So that is out of the way. So the next thing I'll do is to input my the length of my gown. The length of my gown is 36, which is exactly what I have in front there. So to determine the length of the back, so I'm just going to deduct the length of what I have led from the hip line to the hemline, and that's 12 inches. So I'm just going to input that from the hip line and connect. So the next thing I'll do is to input my waist measurement. My waist is 28, so 28 divided by 4 equals to 7. Then I added 1 inch that we've taken for the dart. You must add back your dart measurement. So you must add it back. So I've added it back. That's why I added to 8 inches. And on the hip line, my hip divided by 4 equals to 9, and I have exactly that on the line. So I'm just going to connect those lines together from the chest line to the waist and to the hip. So I'll use my curve ruler to connect it to the hip. So the next thing I'll do is just to do that for the back. The 20 divided by 4 is 7 plus 1 inch for that, that's 8. And on the hip line, 34 divided by 6 equals to 9. So I'm just going to connect it back together like so. So I'll use my curve ruler and connect. So the last thing I'll do now is to take my bust dart, and the bust dart is a difference from the front and the back. You know, the front shoulder to the waist is 16, while the back shoulder to waist is 14. So 16 minus 14 equals to 2. So that's why I will be taking 2 inches for the bust dart. Yours might be 3, it might be 1. So whatever your difference, you're just going to take it right from your bust point to whatever length it is. And that's that. So the last thing I'll do is to take the back dart, and you come to the waistline and take ½ inch, or if the person is plus size, you might take 0.75 or 1 inch. So you come to the center back and take half or 1 depending on the size. Then you connect from the neckline straight to that and also to the hip line. This will allow the back to lay flat. There will not be any kind of bulging around the back. So whatever you take on that waistline for the back dart, you're going to replace it by the side and you're good to go. And that's all for our basic gown pattern. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more awesome content. So the last thing is I'll do is just to label my pattern. I'm writing front and the annotations, that is cut on fold. So I know that I'll cut the front on fold, and the back piece I'll write cut 2 pieces. That means I'm going to be cutting 2 pieces for my back. It's important to label your patterns. So the next thing I'll do is just to cut out the pattern like that. So I'm just cutting it out. So can you see our pattern here? It's just like that. So if you close up the bust dart, because you're going to close it up, you see that the thighs will meet up. If you have been wondering how they're going to meet up if the front is longer than the back, once we close up the bust dart, they're just going to meet. Can you see how they are meeting like that? So that's that on that. It's just going to give the front extra space because of the bust in the front, and it's just going to make the back lay flat and the front to have enough room. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like, and also comment. If you have any question, ask a question. And don't forget, I'm going to catch you in my next video. So bye for now. Don't forget to always practice.